Okay, good. Everyone see? Great. Okay, welcome everybody to our celebration of a book that we made together, that we also made with our beautiful community of teacher poets. My name is Sarah Donovan, and this
My
is
name.
Stephanie Boutelier.
Hi, everyone. I'm in Michigan. I teach at Aquinas College.
And I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I teach at Oklahoma State University. And we just thought we would invite you all here to celebrate today with us because this is our first time talking since the book has come out and meeting in person. And we just wanted to share a little bit of our journey with you and kind of invite you into our writing sessions and just kind of what it was like for us the last few years being together to make this book. Okay, Stephanie, how shall we begin? What do you want to talk about first?
I think I'll just backtrack to when I first was introduced to your work, Sarah. I think it was 2019. Somebody connected me with Sarah's Ethical ELA site that hosts Open Write and also Verse Love, which Verse Love is ending. It's National Poetry Month, and it went 30 days. People were writing poems every day on her site. So that alone, I'm going to give you a little snap out. Congratulations to you on that. From there, a few years after, there was like a big world event in between there. But in 2021, um, Sarah reached out to me to invite me to collaborate on a journal article in writing and pedagogy. And so we took some of the data from Sarah's site and also looking at some of the poetic effects of COVID. Do you like that, how I said that?
It was beautiful.
Thank you. Hashtag poetic effects of COVID. Uh, and looked at humanizing poetry in a digital space. And that was published, I think, right at the beginning of 2023. We had worked on it. We have also since then presented online to Southern Connecticut University. Is that correct? I think. And then also,
No,
yeah,
somewhere in Connecticut.
yes. Um, and then that summer of 23, we started brainstorming this connection of bringing in technology, which is one of my passions, and understanding how that works effectively in the education setting. And then one of Sarah's stronger passions of poetry. And we've been working on this book for almost 2 years, and it's finally out in the world. And so we're here to celebrate that.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that a little bit about my meeting with Stefani is that there was um, one of the things that we like to do in our poetry community is to invite different people to write prompts so that we can have different perspectives and different kinds of prompts, and we can play and try new different ways of writing. And these are all teachers, we want to write about our lives and write about the things that we care about, but also be in a safe place. Um, so that we feel nurtured and good about ourselves and all of that. And I think it was great when Stephanie kind of came into our community and agreed to write some prompts for our open write or our verse love, because we do write every month. And Stephanie brought some digital tools to our community that were honestly a little scary for me and some of our other writers as well. And we have writers who are new to the profession and writers who have been teaching for 40 plus years. And Stephanie brought a prompt of using AI one day, and another prompt where we had to like leave our website and go onto Flipgrid or something and record ourselves reading our poems. And I felt this was like a big risk that I think Stephanie was asking at first. But then I was so surprised and happy how everyone kind of took that chance and tried something new and was really vulnerable, and how Stephanie, just the way that Stephanie is as a human being, just made it a safe and nurturing place and really like walked all of us through that. And we got to see each other live for the first time and hear each other's voices. So people who I had been writing with for 2 or 3 years that I've never seen in person, didn't know what they look like. I had no idea what their voices were like. We finally got to see them in part because of Stephanie's inspiration and her expertise with technology. And so when this idea for the book came about, I was a little nervous about it, but I knew it was going to be an opportunity to learn more about technology, but also do it with a trusted friend, and that it was going to be a really great experience because Stephanie is just incredible. And if I could spend a couple hours with her every week, I knew it would make me a better person. So I was just all in it, even though I was a little nervous.
Well, thank you, Sarah. You are so kind, and your words are always poetic as well. I think working with you is also eye-opening. I love the iterative process of writing and growing that you always lead, and always returning it back to that human piece, the humanizing sense, even though we are all in a digital space. So thank you for working on this with me and always pushing our entire ethical ELA group to new boundaries and new or past new boundaries, I guess. That didn't come out right, but and with Sarah's work in English education and in poetry, I took the lead on our framework that we built upon. There were, I don't even know how many iterations of this before it went to, well, to this form in publication. But we talked through it, we worked through it. We got an IRB, which is basically, if anyone doesn't know on here, wink, wink, mom. That is approval to research and collect data. So we did push out a survey to get feedback on some of the original iteratives of this framework. And so this is how it turned out. And I'm just going to quickly hop to this empty template that is available in our book, and we can share it here. But maybe Sarah, if you wanted to go back, and I'll go back to the original slide. I'm not really showing my technology prowess with this annotation thing. There we go.
There. Okay.
So do you want to take a few moments to talk us through your thinking?
Yes. Okay. So this was one of the great things about collaborating with Stephanie, is that she her work in technology and education and my work teaching teachers, it really exposed this gap in the things that I was doing as an instructor and the things that I was seeing in the schools that I visit, when it relates to technology. So most schools have some sort of multimodal standard, meaning more and more we want students to use digital tools for communicating and publishing and sharing their work. And so you probably have seen lots of slide presentations and video recording and audio recording and podcasts and the TikTok and the Instagram. And kids don't really use Facebook very much, but actually a lot of teachers do. Snapchat, things like that. So these were all these digital tools that students were using, and some things that teachers were trying in the classroom, in addition to Canva and Canvas and Canva and all these other things. But the part that was missing is what happens after you publish or turn something in. And that the teachers, I felt like I wasn't really preparing or didn't know very much about what happens once we make something and it goes out into the world. So when we think about writing in general, in school, not so much, but we're trying to make it this way. We can start anywhere in this framework here. So there's genre, the circle of the genre, and we want to think about the purpose or the choice that is the impetus for the writing. And we want students really to have a choice about that. Like, I really would like to write a poem, or I really would like to write a story. But sometimes teachers choose and they say, oh, we're writing an informational essay or we're writing a personal essay. And sometimes the whole school chooses. I'm working with one school district and the entire 3,000 students are basically writing a narrative story the first quarter. And the school has decided this, right? And sometimes they have a textbook that teaches them how to do it. So where does the writing come from and who decides? This is a really important decision that we don't always think about, and we want to have students make that decision more. After they choose the writing, then it goes into mode and form. What kind of writing is it? Is it informational, argument, narrative, or a mixture? And what kind of form is it? Is it in a prose, which is just like paragraphs, or poetic, or there graphic images? Are they making infographics? Are they having pictures? Or is it a mix of all these? So a multimodal um, piece of writing. And then the next step is the audience and who is going to read and experience and learn from this once the students create it. And a lot of times could be just the student if they're writing in their notebook. It could be the teacher, most often because you're just turning it into the teacher and waiting for your grade or waiting for the approval or feedback of your teacher. Sometimes peers are reading their work. Sometimes it goes to the school newspaper, or maybe there's a school reading competition. Sometimes it goes into the neighborhood, which is less frequent if there's a public presentation in your neighborhood or your library or social media. Sometimes there might be closed media groups or open media groups, and sometimes students publish things and they go out into the World Wide Web and everybody sees it. We don't often think about all those choices when it comes to the assignments that we create with our students. And then the next part was what happens when it enters this digital space and the nature of interaction and choice. Am I doing okay here, Stephanie, or do you want to jump in?
No, you're great. I love it.
Okay. So this part is where I felt like I actually might want you to talk about this part, Stephanie, because this is where I learned so much about what happens once it goes into the digital space and this idea of it, if it's static, meaning that no one can change it. It just exists, and no one can really interact with it or no one can change it. Or if it's shareable, so if I make a picture or a poem that people can share, whether it's a screenshot or they download it or they hit the share button. And when you hit the share button on your phone, you probably notice that you have a lot of choices about where you can share things with. Well, when students make things and they download them or they screenshot them, we don't always know where it goes into the world or what students are doing with it. And I think that's an important piece that we want to talk to students about when they share their work and where it goes. And then if people can interact with it or modify it or remix it, and what's the purpose of that writing? So when we write on our website, Ethical ELA, we know that our poem is going public, that people are going to comment on it, that people can share it in social media. And as a writer, I need to know all those things before I put something out into the world. And that's kind of a missing piece that we thought was happening in schools. And then that last piece about permanence and choice is how long does it last? Is it temporary? Will it be deleted like a sharing link or a QR code? Can it be searched? And for how long can people find it? Is it permanent? Is it identifiable? Can you connect it back to the person? And if the person is under 18, what does that mean? So there's all these other choices and considerations between the genre that they create and the digital world that it goes into. Okay, what do you think, Stephanie?
I was just going to add a few notes about these arrows that go up and down, especially
Yeah.
for the last two, because now with technology, sometimes something we think is static is easily remixable, for example, and it can quickly move up and down this list. This isn't necessarily a spectrum of movement, but it's changing every day with technology. And similar to something that might be temporary, especially with teenagers today, since this audience is for 6th through 12th grade ELA teachers, they're working with teenagers who are used to some temporary technology. However, there is still the option that things can be caught in a screenshot or in a video from a different device, and then it quickly moves into something permanent that is also shareable. And it just kind of goes down a slippery slope, which sometimes is positive and sometimes it's negative, but it's something to consider in this. And that's really where that this cyclical kind of movement is because it's always changing. And then similar to this audience over here, it might start out as student to teacher and might be private, but maybe after some feedback from the teacher and feedback from their peers, they might be ready to move it out into more of a public digital space to share it and celebrate what they have created. So I wanted to point those few things out. I also thought maybe it would be helpful for people on here or those who are watching the recording after, even though I know a lot of people work and celebrate with your ethical ELA. Sorry, I'm multitasking. One second. Let me just pull it from a different site or a different browser. But thinking about showing them what we're talking about with ethical ELA and how that is interactive and people are responding, and then it becomes permanent in that
Mm.
sense, as an example. And this can be done in multiple ways, but one second. So here is, for anyone on here or watching, here is today's ethical ELA post, which is celebrating 30 days of writing poetry in this space. And so you can see here, Sarah posted a prompt. She recapped all of the prompts from the month, which is pretty amazing when you just think about all the writing. I know you have your data for this too. That's always fun to see how many people participated. And then the interactive part is down here in the comments. So you can see people are responding with new poems, and then they're getting responses from other poets along the way. So this becomes um, searchable, permanent, and identifiable when you're searching. Over here, it does have a place of static, that I'm looking for a different word, but once it is published, for example, Brian's poem is published and it will remain there, static in this website, as long as this website is active. It also is shareable. The interactive part is that we can respond. The only person that can modify it would be at least on this website, would be the poet. And I think that's also time-based. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, the poet can edit within a few minutes, and then I, as the facilitator of the website, can edit it at any time. So I actually do have power to edit.
And so this is just, again, an example of how it might look for teachers in their classroom and depending on what site they're using. And then intended for a remix, actually, it's perfect that today Sarah invited one of the options to be a collage poem. And so what that was is, if you're not familiar, it is taking other people's words. So you could see she took different words from the month, from our poems,
I
and
like
create,
to say borrowed.
okay, borrowed. She weaved them all together to create a new blanket of poems. Yes, no, that's really bad. I'm not a live poet. That I should just stop with my attempt at that. But again, you can see that it becomes a potential for remixing borrowed lines from others and giving them credit, which is a big piece in our one of the chapters in our book. We talk about digital citizenry and how we need to also remember that's so important in terms of giving credit to poets that we are remixing or learning and building from. Anything else, Sarah, at least related to the digital place?
No, I think that's really great. I think it's a lot of technological things that we're kind of exploring here with our viewers and listeners. But this is really the foundation of the book, and every chapter walks through a different kind of writing that has this intersection of a genre and a digital tool that we're kind of merging together and walking teachers through this a little bit differently, with some different ideas to think about and some a variety of content as well. And so the should we talk just a little bit about the chapters and then wrap it up? Because see if we have any questions. We don't want to take everybody's morning.
Yep, I was just gonna, I pulled this over to demonstrate part one, how we go through our e-poetry framework that we just shared briefly, looking at the importance of digital citizenry and thinking about that importance of draft to digital, because some of those things are very unique in the digital space versus the hard copy journaling space that some poets and teachers, for example, are used to. And in part two, we take that e-poetry framework and we give examples through the chapters 5 through 10 of how that might look in practice. We give examples, we have some resources, and we also provide a editable rubric for everyone. So the first one, chapter 5 in that part, is around haikus in motion, and the technology is focused on GIFs, or as some people like to say, GIF, depending on, where you're at in the day. Chapter 6, Sarah gives us an amazing example of place-based poetry with zip-odes and YouTube shorts, and she ties in her connection and research to the Armenian genocide. So that is, I mean, that one is an amazing cross-cultural and curricular chapter to look at for history teachers. I think even for higher ed, it's a great way to demonstrate your learning and your understanding of a content in a very new way. So that one highlight to maybe look at first. I think that's a great one. And then chapter 7, we look at AI and nonets, and kind of centering on machine and human poetry. How do we separate but also combine those two? I would like to just put this on recording as a permanent note that anything AI is already out of date like a day later. So just keep that in mind as you read chapter 7, that some of the resources might already have updates or need to have new resources. But I think in that chapter, what we provide is also a kind of a guideline of when and why you might use AI in writing. And then Sarah, do you want to preview the last three before we wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. So chapter 8, Echoes of Persuasion. I loved doing spoken word poetry with my seventh and eighth graders when I was a junior high teacher. And so this is really was a wonderful chapter to write, to revisit all the things that I learned with my junior high writers and poets. And so I traced through this unit that I did with them, and also share how the two voice poems can bring two students or more together to collaborate on some poetry and collaborate on some research, to use spoken word to advocate for an issue that they're passionate about. So it's a way of using poetry and using spoken word and using media to teach people about an issue that they care about and advocate or offer a call to action. Chapter 9, The Concrete Piles of Positivity with Templates. This was one of the poems that I referenced earlier that Stefani contributed to one of our First Love writing opportunities. And it was a pile of good things. Who doesn't want to write or need to write a poem about a pile of good things? And so this poem invites joy into the classroom that we think this chapter everybody needs. And we really hope that you read this one. So it's a pile of joy in a poem that you put into a template that you can share the joy with other people, which is the beauty of this book and this poem. And then playing with words, enhancing poetry through gamification. This was a new thing for me to learn about with Stefani, and she has some great tools and ideas that you can use to integrate poetry throughout the school year with a little bit more playfulness and experimenting with some different technologies. And then, of course, we have a nice letter to you at the end, thanking you for reading in our epilogue.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We open it up to any questions. Well, I think that was enough think time.
I
So
think it was. So
thank you.
anyone watching, you can put some comments, some questions in the comment section below in the video where it's going to be live on YouTube, and then we'll respond to you there. And also try this code for getting a discount if you want to get the book. And if it doesn't work, let us know and we can find you the right code.
And the code
Um,
should last, I think, until January of 2026. So you have a while, but
okay, thanks everyone for joining us. It's great to
thank
be with
you.
you, and we hope that you get some poetry in your life.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Congratulations, Stephanie.
Thanks. And Madeline said the code does work. So.
Okay.